I want to endorse Harry's work because his forecasting is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Very accurate, because he's a demographer, which means demographics, people, generations, time. And as they say, demography is destiny. Is what's happening with the people is the future.
Take this seriously. In 2 years after COVID, we are already falling in a recession again. If that doesn't tell you something's wrong, you better wake up. This is not going to be a recession. It's going to be a mini depression. We should have had a bigger one in 2008, 9, and 10 and got rid of most of this bad debt. Now we have more bad debt than ever. We're going to get rid of it in the next few years. It's going to be painful. This will not end well.
People are finally waking up that something might be wrong. So today I'm going to hear Harry's solution, because I think Harry's solution is more viable than my solution or Kim's solution. Harry, how come people don't know this? What blocks them from knowing?
By my demographic analysis, the greatest boom in history. When I was predicting this in the 80s, people thought I was crazy, that the U.S. could do so well. They thought Japan and Asia was going to take over the world. I said, no, that we still have a giant, one of the best baby booms in history coming along, and they're going to spend and earn a lot of money, and we're going to have the greatest boom in history from 1983 to 2007. And then 2008, of course, it did go down. And I predicted that 20 some years before it happened, okay? But forget that. That caused a shock to the economy. And then governments have been printing money ever since. Now, to print money for a year to overcome a strong downturn like 2008-9, I'd agree with that. 1 year of money printing. To be printing money 13, 14 years and escalating and printing and fiscal stimulus combined after COVID for 2 years, $10 trillion, half of GDP, is insanity. My forecast, all the way back to the 80s when I started with my generation cycles and technology cycles every 45 years, the generation are more like 38, 39. And we'd have the greatest boom in history, but it would slow after 2007 and not come back with the millennials until about 2023, 24. Well, what we have now is we have the greatest bubble in history because governments fought the slowdown after 2008, which was very serious and would have been more serious and should have lasted into 2010, much like the 29 to 32 collapse. They just bubbled up financial assets. They haven't changed, incomes and stuff. They bubbled up financial assets, which means the rich, which were already getting richer in the greatest bubble boom in history, got even richer, and everyday people are still struggling. And now we have an economy, and I've been warning for years, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it's happening now. You can't do this forever. You can't just print money and grow an economy past its fundamentals of what I study better than I think anybody in the world. When do people earn and spend money over their life cycle? What's the life cycle of people, and how do generations, particularly the largest in history, at least the largest in 250 years, the baby boom generation, affect that boom and bust? And we are still in the bust wake of the baby boom's peak into 2023, 24 before we can grow through natural causes. And I see that this government printing scheme is now failing, despite printing more and more, failing anyway, because you can't do this forever, and it's going to collapse, which is just in time for us to balance out the economy so we can grow again with the millennial generation from 2024 forward. We should have had a bigger one in 2008, 9, and 10 and got rid of most of this bad debt. Now we have more bad debt than ever. We're going to get rid of it in the next few years. It's going to be painful. The whole world is high on nonstop stimulus since 2009, and this will not end well. The proof of my concept, if we see another wave down, which would be the logical thing, forget everything we're saying. If I'm just looking as a stock chartist, we had this first crash, a tepid bounce, and we have another one of the same magnitude. We're going to see 73.50, on the NASDAQ, down more than 50%. By late this year, early next year, and then people are going to know something is really wrong.
So Harry, this is my question. I mean, we agree on all that. 1974, the government passed ERISA, which became the 401k, which is the biggest Ponzi scheme I ever saw. And now they're pulling the rug out from all the baby boomers. And I'm sure your numbers are going to be very accurate because you are very accurate in your predictions. So the baby boomers are toast. So they were the boom, now they're the bust. Harry, how come people don't know this? What blocks them from knowing?
Just normal. You believe what you want to believe because you want to believe it. The baby boom did cause, and I was the first one to say it, and it took me to the mid-'80s. I didn't get it in 1982 fully. Mid-'80s, see, this generation's going to go into their peak spending cycle all the way into 2007, greatest boom in history, going to make the 50s and 60s Bob Hope generation look like nothing, but then it's going to crash. So that's the problem now. It did crash. And the bigger problem is government said, well, we're not going to let it crash. And I'm like, who the hell are you? A bunch of politicians that never did anything for a living, most of you, and say, oh, we're just not going to let the economy do what the economy will do to correct an imbalance of overinvestment in bubbles and financial assets and bring them down to normal so we can grow again. They're fighting it. All I do is research what happens in history, what causes things and what doesn't, and that's the truth. There has been no bubble any time in all of history that has not burst badly and rapidly when it does, and it's already started. Everyday people didn't used to have so much money in stocks. It was more in real estate. And real estate does not go down like stocks does. Real estate is more stable even when it goes down. And everybody now has to root for this thing to keep going. And so they'll listen to the people that say, oh, no, don't worry about this. Don't worry about debt levels. Don't worry about demographics declining, which they're declining at the speed of light in all developed countries in the world. Somehow the government will bring us out of this. The millennials are causing, with less spending than the baby boomers who already peaked at age 46 to 47 before them, they're causing a slowdown. And instead of governments helping to restructure debt. We've got tons of bad debt now from the great boom from 83 to 2007 that needs to be restructured. They're encouraging people to keep that bad debt in place and not to reinvest in new industries and stuff. They're doing all the wrong things because they don't want to have a recession. You know what recession is to me? Sleep. Try not sleeping for 3 days and not become a crazy person. It's already proven. 3 to 5 days, no sleep, you'll become a crazy person. We have to grow and expand all the innovation of the past, and we have to slow again and restructure and cut out losing companies and losing things and reinvest in the future. And governments are interrupting the free market capitalist system that has made us the richest and the greatest advance since the late 1700s in all of history because they don't want to have a damn recession. All of this stimulus on top of the greatest demographic boom in history, but which did start to fail. So all this stimulus throws money into the economy. What do governments do with this stimulus? They buy financial assets. They start with bonds, but the more money goes in bonds, it will trickle into higher valuation stocks and real estate because that's where the returns are. So what we have now, and I got a number on this, it's close to $600 trillion in financial assets globally. Okay, 600 trillion, that's about 7 times global GDP at 95 trillion. And normally financial assets are a premium 2, maybe 3 times. So the biggest bubble in the world is all financial assets, even bonds. And when you have a crash like this, when these financial assets start to crumble, the money has to go somewhere. It goes into the safest areas. So it is the income producing real estate, multifamily mostly, and it is the treasury bonds, the highest quality government bonds. If the US government can print enough money to keep a dumb bubble going, they'll certainly print money to pay their bonds off, their treasury bonds, okay? You don't have to worry about a default on 30 or 10-year treasury bonds. And again, I go back and say, okay, let's look at 2008. When I look at the 2008 crisis, that was like 1929 to 32 coming in, except this time, massive stimulus, which they didn't do back then. So they come out of it, okay? But that's when you see things go down, financial assets go down, flirting with deflation. This time we're going to deflate more because they tried to pump it up and it's failing anyway. So financial assets keep falling. So the money has to go somewhere. So what it goes into the safest bonds and the highest quality real estate, which is the people. Again, real estate's gotten just as overvalued as stock. The people who are renting real estate, multifamily, to people who will need it more than ever. Even people who would rather buy can't buy in a bad market and hard to get loans. It's the safe areas. It's the U.S. Treasury bonds, which is the best bonds in the world. Other government bonds are good. Nothing's going to beat a 30-year Treasury bond, and nothing's going to beat in the real estate area, multifamily, rental real estate, because people who are thinking of buying and it's overpriced, and then they see the prices fall, they're going to be more scared. So renting will.
Yeah, so Harry, the big distinction is, there was a thing called junk bonds and this bond and corporate bonds and all that. So you're saying government backed, like the U.S. government.
Yes, AAA corporate, and in the world, even, who's the best house in a bad neighborhood? Already been through. Is Europe in trouble? Yes. Has Japan been in trouble forever? Yes. Okay. U.S. is still the best house in a bad neighborhood. Our bonds went up in 2008 crisis, 45% Treasury bonds, 30-year Treasury bonds, and they're going to go up more than that this time. So you go to the safest places. Again, where can you get predictable rentals, even in bad times, from real estate? And that's from apartments and multifamily. And where are the best bonds that will be paid no matter what, when all financial assets have to go. Now, here's my number. From 600 trillion worldwide, they're going to have to come back down to about 250 to 300 trillion. Now, think about this. Globally, 3 times global GDP in 95, $300 trillion, give or take, 250 disappears in financial assets and doesn't come back for a long time. That's the big news in the next coming years. So as long as you're protected from that in the right real estate and in the right bonds, the highest quality, longest term. If I could buy one thing, it'd be a 30-year Treasury bond.
Okay, U.S. government.
U.S., not Tanzania. Right. Europe has much worse demographics and already been slower than us. U.S. as a developed country is going to come out of this after a damn near short-term depression, the best. And our millennial generation, Europe doesn't have one, by the way, okay, is going to be the best in the developed world. So we come out of this better, and our bonds, our U.S. Treasury bonds, 30-year Treasury bonds would be my number one recommendation right now. If not that, you buy ZROZ, Z-R-O-Z, which is an ETF that balances 20 and 30 and leans towards the 30, so 25-year average. TLT is about 50-50. Okay, so the Z-R-O-Z ETF will go up about 50% faster than the TLT, and the TLT has already done very well since this crisis set in at the top and boom, and will do much better when we get it to work. In 2008, the worst of it was in late 2008, TLT and ZROZ went to the moon. And the biggest thing I get is people say, Harry, you're recommending 30-year Treasury bonds. I'm not, I'm recommending them for the next 20, 30 years. No, they're for the crash. They're the safe haven in the crash. When the crash happens, I don't want to hold 30-year Treasury bonds at 1 to 2% yields or zero. I want to get back into the best part of the world, and it's not going to be North America anymore. It's going to be better than Europe, but Asia is going to be better than North America and continue to be. That's simple. There's nothing simpler than demographics than that. We're better than Europe in the developed world, and as things move forward, all the growth is going to be in Asia, East Asia, going towards India, which after I die will be the richest, greatest, largest country in the world. Take this seriously. You know, we've had so many corrections now, and we've had this boom go since 1982 now. And even when it should have gotten a lot worse in the last decade, they propped it up. Be serious. You cannot have something for nothing economics work forever. And the fact that after the $10 trillion in combined fiscal and monetary stimulus in 2 years after COVID, we are already falling in a recession again. If that doesn't tell you something's wrong, you better wake up. This is not going to be a recession. It's going to be a mini depression that'll take a couple years to work out. And if it's allowed to work, Robert asked me my solution. My solution is let the economy wash out all this debt and bad companies. More zombie companies than ever, highest levels of debt levels and bad debt ever. We have to wash this out, or even with the millennial generation's demographics, we're going to at best crawl out of this instead of rise. So I want to see a downturn that restructures debt
And what did I do early in my career? I was a consultant to Fortune 100 companies that failing, and I decided they sucked. So I became a consultant to new ventures that are always failing. That's what they do for a living. And in a turnaround, you have to cut costs, cut debt, and reposition for the future. And everything the government's doing is keeping us from doing that so that we can actually enjoy the next boom when the millennials drive us up. So I'm rooting for this to go down harder, faster, sooner, so we can take a big restructuring of debt and zombie companies. Zombie companies are off the chart, debt's off the chart. That's the problem. Demographics are a problem, but only until 2024, then demographics turn around.
I mean, I keep seeing people say this is going to turn into hyperinflation. No, it's not going to take much more inflation. It's already crimping our economy and bonds and stuff, and that's already going to lead to a downturn. I'm telling you, when we see this downturn, I think we're already into it. It's already starting now. Inflation will disappear at 9.1% or 10% if it gets the height, and never appear in the rest of our lifetime. That's the forecast.
Wow.
Never see inflation above a few percent for the rest of all of our lifetimes, even if you're 20 years old today. That's my forecast.